So, this evening is called The Present Cannot Breathe, a Time of Wars. And I hope this space won't become a war room or a site of war, but one of empathy for all the victims. And I want this to be an interactive evening. I want to hear your voices, and I'm sure you want your voices to be heard. So we'll encourage 1 or 2 points or questions after each performer. And of course it may only be many years later that trauma, the trauma of war or conflict, is integrated into narrative. The impossibility of writing at the time of the conflict or war can be easily understood, but it may be the exile writers, those who belong to the victimized group but are in exile, that maybe are the voices of those people who are suffering so much. Okay, for our last session, we're very lucky to be featuring 2 poets, Adnan Al-Sayegh and Stephen Watts. Adnan will be reading his poetry in Arabic and introducing each one in English, and Stephen will read Adnan's poetry in English. So I'll tell you a little bit about Adnan. Adnan was born in Iraq, but left his homeland or fled from his homeland in 1993. He then lived in Amman and Beirut, and then took refuge in Sweden in 1996. He has published 12 collections of poetry and has received several international awards and performed his poetry worldwide, and he's widely respected in the Arab world, certainly. And Stephen Watts is a poet and editor who will be reading Adnan's work in English. So, Adnan and Stephen, do you want to come up?
Adnan is asking me to
Can you just put the microphone?
Adnan's asking me to do the brief introduction. I'll just add that I am co-translator of the poem, so it's not as if I just walked in and said, no, I only say that because we work very closely together, and that matters a lot. But we're just going to read 2 poems, one very short and one much longer. The first poem really speaks for itself. It doesn't actually need an introduction. It's about 8 lines. So.
What is it called? I won't let you go without telling us the title.
That's a very good point. Critical. Sorry.
Hello everybody. تأويل. يبلونني سطورا ويبغوني فصولا ثم يفارسونني ويطبعونني كاملا ويوزعوني على المكتبات ويشتمونني في الجرائد وأنا لم أفتح فمي بعد.
They write up my lines, split me into chapters, catalogue my references, print the whole works, get me in the bookshops, badmouth me in print, and I haven't even opened my mouth yet. Damascus, 1996. The longer poem. I emerged from the war unawares, which Adnan wrote in the early 1990s. Yeah, and it reflects on the, I think it reflects incident. I'm really sorry to miss the area about the reading. I could only get here now. I think it does reflect the themes that you're wanting to try and address in the evening. And it reflects on the Iran-Iraq War, which went on throughout the 1980s, and probably cost about 1 million lives in both countries. So, a really severe loss of life. Adnan was conscripted unwillingly as a soldier in that war, so he had direct experience of the battle, of the war. Thankfully he lived through it, and a lot of his writing reflects on that. I don't think I want to say much more, and you may want to ask Adnan questions afterwards. We're going to read it in 2 parts because it's quite long, but it is one poem.
خرجت من الحرب سهوا، أنا خارج من زمان الخيانات نحو البكاء النبيل على وطن أخضر حرثته الخنازير والسرفات. أنا داخل في مدار القصيدة نصف طليق ونصف مصفد، فعليكم رثائي بما تملكون من الندبات، وليس علي سوى أن أشير لكم بأصابع نائلة لقميص البلاد المعلق فوق رماح العشيرة تنخب الطلقات. فإن سالوا نهر الفرات المضرج بين أصابعكم حينما تكتبون، عبث كل ما يكتب الشعراء، فهذا الزمان يعلمنا أن نصفق للقاتلين حينما يعبرون الرصيف إلى دمنا، وهذا الزمان يعلمنا أن نقصر قاماتنا كي تمر الرياح على رسلها، أن نماشي القطيعة إلى الكلأ الموسمي، ولكنني من خلال الحطام الذي خلفته المدافع أرفع كفي أمام عيون الزمان الضرير، وأعلمه كيف نحفر أسماءنا بالأظافر كي تتوهج. لا، نحن الذين خرجنا من الثكنات نكش ذباب العواصم عن جرحنا، نخطئ حين تمر بنا الشاحنات الطويلة في عدد الشهداء الذين مضوا في رحاب القنابل، وفي عدد الأصدقاء الذين مضوا في الطوابير، لكنني والقصيدة لم ترها بعد عين الرقابة لا أخطئ الوجع المر حين تمر على وجل الأمهات، لا أخطئ الوجع المر حين تمر على وجل الأمهات تسمرن فوق رصيف المحطات يسألن من يعبرون للحرب أن يأخذوا ليلهن الطويل مناديل دمع تغمد جرح المسافة بين الرصاصة والطلقات، بين الرصاصة والدعوات. يكابرن صبر سنين أمام الأسرة فارغة في مستشفيات الحروب، يشرون فوق حبال الرياح شراشف من رحلوا كي تجففها للذين سيأتون عما قليل. إلى أين تمضي بأعمارنا غضة أيها الرب؟ سأكتم هذا الصراخ بحنجرتي ريثما تفطرون على صحف اليوم والشاي، أكتب عن قمر سيجيء وعن غيمة عبرت قمحنا لتحط على جرحنا، وربت فوق مواجعكم كي أمر كخيط القصيدة يلضم قلبي بالطرقات، وخيط قميص المنافي على قد أحزانكم، وأترك دم قميصي الذي قد من قبل شاهدي ودليلي لدى كاتب العدل. لم أنهزم أو أفر كخيل بن العم من ساحة الحرب، بيني وبين الرصاص مسافة صدقي، بيني وبين الرصاص مسافة صدقي. وهذه القصيدة مبحوحة الصوت من فرط ما هرولت في الخنادق، تصرخ من فزع وذهول، أوقفوا قرع هذه الطبول. من يمسح الآن عن قبض ذاكرتي صور الأصدقاء الذين مضوا في بريد القنابل بلا زهرة أو نعاس، ولم يتركوا غير قلبي، أصدقاء الذين أضاعوا الطريق إلى دمعهم والمنازل، أصدقاء القنابل، أنا شخت قبل أواني. ألم تبصروا رئتي سودتها الشعرات للتب، ألم تبصروا قامتي حدبتها خطى العابرين إلى الأوسمة. آهي مما يكتم قلبي وما تعلن الصحف والفتيات يراوغن نبض المحب إلى مصعد الشقة الفارهة. سلاما بلاد السنابل، سلاما بلاد الجداول، سلاما بلاد التي كلما حاصرتها القنابل حملت جرحها راية لتقاتل ومالت على جهة الروم. لا روم غير الذي ترك الأهل في ظهرنا من طعام السنان المخاتل.
I emerged from the age of betrayals toward a noble weeping for a green homeland ploughed up by pigs and tank trucks. I entered the orbit of the poem half free and half in shackles. So the lamentations are down to you and your hired mourners, and there is nothing for me to do but point out to you with Nailia's fingers the country's shirts slung across tribal spears, perforated by gunshot. The Euphrates seeping bloodily through your fingers as you write. All that poets write is in vain. For this age teaches us to applaud the murderers as they wade across the pavements of our blood, and this age teaches us to diminish ourselves so the winds may flow freely and keep pace with the herds gone to summer pastures. But I, from out the wreckage the cannons left behind, will raise my palm covered with blood-drenched dust before the eyes of the world. I'll teach it how we fingernail our names so the word no shines out. We who have come from the barracks to shake metropolitan flies from our wounds. Can we be wrong as such huge lorries pass us about the number of innocents gone off as bombs and the number of friends queuing up to die? But I, the poem the censor's eye has not yet seen, am not mistaken about this bitter pain. When we get to the dread of mothers nailed down on railway platforms asking those going off to war to take their night-long handkerchiefs of tears to heal the wounds of distance between the bullets and their prayers, patiently they endure the years of facing vacant, empty beds in field hospitals, hanging the shrouds of the dead over wind-swept wash ropes so they'll be dry for those next in line. Where shall we take our lives, still so tender, O Lord? I will stifle this clamour in my throat while you breakfast on tea and today's newspapers. I will write about a moon that is rising and a cloud passing over our wheat fields to settle over our wounds. I will soothe your suffering so I can move on like a line in a poem, threading my heart through the alleyways. I will sew a shirt of exile the size of your sorrows and leave the blood of my slashed shirt as my witness and evidence before the writer of justice. I've not been defeated, nor have I fled like my cousin's horses from the field of battle. There is a distance of truth between me and the bullets. And this poem, its voice hoarse from too much crawling through trenches and screaming in terror and bewilderment. Stop beating those drums. Who will delete from the labyrinths of my memory images of friends pronounced dead in dispatches, leaving behind neither flower nor slumber, and nothing for an address but my heart? Friends who lost the way to their grief, their homes, friends of the bombs. I have grown old before my time. Haven't you seen my lungs blackened by slogans? Haven't you seen my body hunkering beneath medal grabbers? What does his heart hide? What newspapers and loose women reveal, duping lovers' uplifts to fancy apartments? Greetings to the country of wheat. Greetings to the country of running waters. Greetings to my country, the one that, besieged by bombs, carried its wounds like a banner into battle and rebelled against the authority of the Romans. No Romans now, but our own countrymen, ready to backstab us with their treacherous blades.
على شفتي شجر دابل والفرات الذي مر لم يروني ورائي نباح الحروب العقيمة يطلقها الجنرال على لحمنا فنراوغ أسنانها والشظايا التي مشطت شعر أطفالنا قبل أن يذهبوا للمدارس والورد. أركض في غابة الموت أجمع أحطاب من رحلوا في خريف المعارك مرتقبا مثل نجم حزين وقد خلفوني وحيدا هنا لاقما طرف دشداشتي وأراوغ موتي بين القنابل والشهداء. أنا شاعر أكلت عمره الكلمات فكيف أرتب هذه الحروف وأطلقها جملة دون أن يزلق القلب مرتبكا من لساني وينفجر اللغم. أركض قلبي على وطني أين يدفن أبناءه الأرض أصغر من دمع أمي. أنفض عن جلد طفل الرصاصة فيجمعه فينا الطحين. تمر الرياح بأوتار قلبي فيزدح حزن المروج. يمر الفراش على جرحنا ويطير إلى الزهر. يا شجرا علمتنا براعمه أن نبرعم غصن مواجعنا للربيع الذي سوف يأتي لكي يفتح الياسمين نوافذه. لو يعقل الياسمين وقلبي تلوذ بمعطفه. تمر بها الطائرات ترى نبضه دافقا كالحديقة ملتصقا بالتويج الذي كان يرعش تحت القميص البليل. أحبك. تقطعها الصفرات فتنفرط القبلات على العشب تحرثها السرفات إلى آخر الياسمين وحزني. نعلق ما ظل من زعل فوق شماعة الحرب. ينحدر الليل صوب المنازل وادعة في مساء التشابه والبنزنبق المر. ينحدر الطير نحو سقوف المخازن. يهرع سرب الكراكي إلى نبع روحي. غدا في صباح بلا طائرات سنركض تحت رذاذ البنفسج ملتصقين نلف الشوارع والكركرات نمسد شعر النوافير. أذكر أن يديك تحبان أن تنعس في يدي هل يكبر الحقل من زهرة أم يديك؟ أرى ما أرى من جنون الحياة على صدرها هائم الروح كالقبرات. ألم الأزاهير عن ثوبها والمروج التي حصدتها الشظايا. يتعتعني عسل سال من خطأ الشفتين. أخطأت في الحب. إن الممر الذي ضمنا تحت ظل الصنوبر يذكر كيف تسلل قلبي لصدرك في غفلة من يدي. أفرطت في الشرب. لا توهميني بأنك أكثر دفئا من الأرض. هذه البلاد على بعد قنبلة من وريدك. يا أيها الشاعر المتغرب بين النواميس. إنا نقيس الحياة على حجم قنبلة عبرت صبرنا الصعب. نسقط منها الشظايا الزوائد كي نرتديها قميصا من البهجة المستحيلة. هل خطأ أن نحب الحياة؟
A withered tree on my lips, and the passing Euphrates has not quenched my thirst. Behind me the barking of futile wars unleashed on our flesh by the general, so that we'll have to evade their teeth and the shrapnel that used to comb our children's hair before school. I run through the forests of death, gathering those gone in the autumn of battle as kindling, on the lookout like a sad star, here alone, biting on my dasher, dodging death between bombs and martyrs. I'm a poet whose life has been eaten by words, so how am I to put these letters together to release a sentence without my heart slipping, bewildered from my tongue, causing a landmine to explode? I run, my heart on my motherland. Where will she bury her sons? This earth, smaller than my mother's tears. I'll shake the bullets off my son's skin and he will gather them in the flower bin. Winds pass through my heartstrings, sorrow sings in the meadow. Butterflies fly over our wounds, then on toward flowers. You trees whose buds have taught us to sprout branches from our suffering, that spring might come and jasmine open its window. If only the jasmine and my heart would be reasonable. She takes refuge in his coat as warplanes fly over, feels his pulse spring bursting like the garden, brushing the corolla beneath her wet shirt. I love you. Sirens pull her away and kisses are scattered on the grass. Earthworms plough them deep into jasmine and heart sorrow. We hang what is left of anger on the hook of war. Night descends on the houses, peaceful in the vagueness of evening and bitter lilies. Birds descend over warehouse roofs. A flight of cranes wheels into my soul's spring. Tomorrow, in a dawn without warplanes, we'll run under drizzling violets. We'll melt together. We'll wander through streets of laughter. We'll stroke the fountain's hair. I'll remember how your hands love to slumber in my hands, and we will grow. Does a flower grow from a Does a field grow from a flower or from your hands? I will see what I see of love's madness on her breast, my soul carried off like a lark. I will gather flowers from her dress and from meadows mowed by shrapnel. Honey pouring from the lips, error made me stagger. The path that brought us together in the pine tree's shade remembers how my heart stole off to your breast with my hand, without my hands noticing. Don't convince me you're warmer than the land. This country is at a bomb's distance from your veins, and you a migrant bird among dictionaries. We measure life with the caliber of a grenade. As it arcs across our long-suffering patience, we'll subtract it from the excess of shrapnel and wear it like a shirt of impossible, absurd joy. So is it wrong that we so love life? Baghdad, 14th of December, 1991.